Alright, hello again guys. This time in this video I'm going to start showing you how to start building your actual body of a report. I'm going to introduce you to changing the margins, to changing the location of the page number and what you can do in the header and footer, and also to show you how to introduce a section. And actually I'm going to start with a section because if you think about it, you flip over the title page, you're going to be greeted with a table of contents along with other preamble, and then when you encounter your report body, you're probably going to have a heading that says something like introduction. So let's get started on that. So after the title page, we're going to introduce a section, and I'm going to call it the introduction. And you can label this, and this is something cool that you'll want to check out, and I'll show how this is useful later. You label this, you want to call it something. For example, I'm going to call it a section, and I'm going to label it intro for the introduction. This can be called on later. So let's say if you start talking and you're on page 40 or whatever, you can say, this was discussed as in section 2 or whatever, which is Tobias's lifestyle. And if you called on the section 2, or in this case section intro, it would point to the page. You can point to the page number that section is on, as well as the title of the section. So this is cool, and I'll show you how that works later. But for now, I'm going to get started on actually writing the report. So this is the first line of the report. This report will document on Tobias, the groundhog who lives in my backyard. Alright, so let's build that. And there we go. So we have our section and we have our text. Now let's say we wanted to start a new paragraph. This is a really short paragraph, but starting a new paragraph, next line, I could say something like, Tobias likes to live in a hole in the ground. And if I build that, you see that Tobias likes to live in a hole in the ground starts within the same paragraph that is the first paragraph, despite starting on the second line. This is something that I mentioned in the last tutorial, and one way you could go about fixing this is with a double slash. If you do that, you see that there's no indentation. So this is why I prefer to use a double return for text formatting, because here we have the indentation, and this is the way that text paragraphs should look in a report, in my opinion at least. And then if I were to continue, the text will wrap around properly, don't you worry. And if I build that, there you go, it's wrapping around properly, and you don't have to worry. Okay, so other things that I mentioned are the page margins and the location of this page number. I don't like the page margins, and I don't like this number. Instead of typing out a whole bunch here, I'm going to import a package that will fill out the document a little bit for me. So this is the first time I'm importing a package. I'm importing Lipsum. A package is kind of like a macro in a sense. It's like a system you can use to automatically do things for you in the report. For example, if I make a 1 paragraph long Lipsum section, I get a paragraph here of Latin nonsense that will just fill up space, so you can better see the formatting that's about to happen. So you see that the margins are well established here. It looks like 2 inches or something. So let's say I want to make these margins smaller. How do I go about doing that? Well, I'm going to use a package, the geometry package. So I'm going to use a package, and I'm going to set the margin to be, say, 1 inch. And I want to include the footer in this margin, and of course it is the geometry package. If I build now, you will see that my margin is only 1 inch all the way around, including for the footer. Now, you might say, okay, well, I want margins that are 1 inch all the way around, except for the left side, because let's say we're going to bind this report, you know, the binding might take up 1/2 inch, and if that's the case, your page will not be centered for the amount of white space that you see. So you could do something like margin all around, and then comma left is 1.5 inches, and I build that, and there we go. So the one here also moved to be centered with the rest of the text, and now I have 1.5 inches on the left versus on the right. Now the left here has to be on to the right of margin, because it will do the margins first. For example, if I cut this out and I put it, whoa, what happened here? If I put left here you see it would have made the margin left 1.5 inches, and then it would have made the margins all around 1 inch. So we don't want that. So you definitely have to keep in mind the order of your text. See how it changes like that? Okay. So something else I'd like to show you how to change here is the position of this page number. This page number right now is in the center, and I don't like that. I like having my page number off to the right. As well, you might go, I don't just want it to say 1. I want it to say page 1. How do I go about doing that? Well, to do that, you're going to have to include a new package, and this package is called the fancy HDR package. So I'm going to just comment out header and footer stuff just so that you guys can follow along what I'm doing. So I'm going to use a package, and it's called fancy HDR, and you guys can look this up online, and there's an instruction manual that goes with it. Fancy HDR, what you can do with it is you can change your page style from plain to fancy, and if we go and do that, we can take a look what happens. Ooh, isn't that fancy? We got a line, we have a section. Ooh, that looks really nice, doesn't it? But I don't want that. I want to change this down here. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to clear the header, and you do that by calling on fancy head, and we clear the footer by calling on fancy foot. And if I build that, you'll see that the page number is now gone and the section here is gone. Then what I can do is, after I've cleared the fancy foot, I can write a new fancy foot. So what I'm going to write is I'm going to cause it to line up on the right, and then I'm going to write the page. This is a command. So if I do this, there we go. We got it built up on the right here. And it is lined up with the text, and that's why I included the foot in my geometry package, is to make sure that the footer also extended out to there. Now we have this line up here, and I don't want that line. Maybe I want that line down here. Well, what do we do about that? Well, what we're going to do is we're going to renew command, and this is writing over, it's the short description of it is you're writing over something that's already been written. So we're going to change the head rule width, so the width of that line that you see right there, to 0 points. And if I do that, it gets rid of the line up here. I can also do the same, renew command, for the bottom if I wish. So that would be foot rule width, I believe. And it should be 0 points right now, and if I type in 0 points again, it should do nothing. That's right. But if I wanted a line down there, I could change it to 1 point. If I wanted a line in the footer, I could change it to 1 point. And there you go. This is what the fancy HDR package allows you to do. Now I don't want either of these lines, so I'm going to write these out to 0, but these are just things you can play with, and there's even more you can play with if you read the instruction manual on the fancy HDR. So that's all that I wanted to show you. Right now where we are is we have ourselves a title page that looks really snazzy, or at least better than it did before in my opinion. And now we have our margins set so that we can bind this remarkable 2-page report and still have our text centered. We have our section, and we have some text, and we have it formatted exactly like we would like to have it. In the next video, I'm going to build up some more sections. I'm going to show you how to start a section on a new page. So instead of having introduction and then like section 2 right here, we could have introduction and then our next section, which might be like Tobias Lifestyles on the next page, and how to install a table of contents to keep track of all of these sections. I'll see you then.